on this show that November is the month of chaos, and I think a lot of teams, fan bases, coaching staffs, school administrators got reminded of that this weekend in Week 11, as you had a couple teams that made some statement wins, but also you had a lot of teams that had to throw everything but the kitchen sink to escape some hostile road environments and get some conference wins. This is College Football Tailgate, our Week 11 recap show. I'm Dan Watkins. John McKechnie's here with me, as always. John, I think we have a lot to unpack this week, just to put it lightly.
No doubt about it. Was able to catch almost everything. I did. So I think I mentioned this last week that I'm one of the YouTube TV people.
Right.
And I was complaining.
How's your $20 credit?
Apparently I got to go redeem that before it expires, and they charge me $20 for not claiming it.
Right.
But I was texting with you on Friday night, excited to watch the Memphis Tulane game, and I noticed that I have my Hulu reactivated sort of out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, well, that must mean that I get ESPN. I do, but I get ESPN Select, which means you don't actually get to watch good football. So I took it upon myself, the resourceful man that I am. I watched the Georgia game at the gym on
Did
Saturday.
you?
They had a wonderful setup at the Planet Fitness. They had the Georgia game on the big screen in front of the dumbbell area. So I lost track of any exercises I was doing, how many sets, how many reps. I was just kind of making stuff up there to just kind of waste time, so I wasn't just completely standing in other people's way. But I woke up very, very sore on Sunday morning as a result. But I'm willing to give my blood, sweat, and tears for the dogs, and was otherwise able to catch the game. So wild Saturday for sure. But I would recommend, if you're in my shoes, go ahead and pump out your frustrations at the gym while you watch your team.
Yeah, and Georgia took out their frustrations on Mississippi State over the weekend, and we've talked about how sicko fan brains work and all that. I mean, John, I can't help put two and two together here. You go and work out during a Georgia game, and Georgia gets it off to a fast start for the first time in all season. So I mean, the Dogs scored on 6 of their first 7 drives here. So I don't know, things start a little slowly Saturday against Texas. Maybe you got to book it over to Planet Fitness and inspire the troops and get going.
You might be onto something there. It will be open in the evening, and I'll be I'll kind of have my go bag ready. If Texas is up 10, midway through the first quarter, I'm out the door. I'm at the gym. I'm repping, and we'll just kind of have to make it work because you have to do your part as a fan to be a completely insane, superstitious person, and obviously Saturday was a bit of a milestone as far as that's concerned. So it helped us this past week against Miss State. If it needs to, I will push that button and set off the lunk alarm once again.
I love it. I absolutely love it. All right, so as we get going here and get rolling, I just want to say thank you very much if you are watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are watching. We are at College Football Tailgate on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's completely free. It does not change anything for you if you hit that button. All it does is help John and I as we continue to try to build this show. You can follow us on Twitter at CFB Tailgate 25. We are on TikTok at CFB Tailgate, and you can follow us individually if you'd like to. I'm at Dan Watkins Radio. John is at Johns_Tailgate. So just hit that subscribe or follow button here because we are just right into the thick of it. College football, this is the best time of year. And we do this show on Monday and Thursdays typically. And John, the Monday shows here, I'm thinking we're in this weird kind of no man's land spot when we record our shows where these games have all had over 24 hours to breathe now, but we're also still a full day away from when this committee is going to unleash their latest rankings and all that. So I think what we should try to do here on Mondays is just kind of lead in with what the biggest impacts are for the committee and what we think they're going to do, and then we'll kind of get into our game breakdowns here. If you're cool with that, obviously. But that's how I'm kind of thinking we kind of shape these Monday shows from here on out.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And obviously, we will still unpack the biggies from the weekend. But yeah, trying to put on our committee hats, I think is a fun exercise for sure. I thought we were pretty dialed in on what they were going to do last week, I thought, for the most part. So, why not keep that rolling? And I guess for me, what I want to know from you is there any shakeup in this top six, maybe top seven, now that Oregon had like kind of the big win themselves against Iowa?
Right. So where I'm going with and what I wanted to lead off with, and it's not really that big of a, not really going to be that big of an issue, I think, down the road. But just for this week, do you think we see them flip flop like at Texas A&M and Indiana? That's what I'm curious about. Did Texas A&M, the way they beat Missouri and handled Missouri over the weekend, did that get the committee to say, okay, maybe this is the second best team in the country, where we saw Indiana have to do everything they possibly could to beat Penn State, and we needed a legacy Heisman type drive from Fernando Mendoza to get that win there in Happy Valley against a Penn State team that is just, they're dead, and they've lost 6 straight games now. Yes, Indiana wins. And I think we saw in the AP, and I don't know how much you can really, we're going to find out how much we can take away, I think, from the AP poll each week, starting on Tuesday night here, where we saw Texas A&M get a few more first place votes than we saw them get a week ago, and we saw Indiana's come down here. So I'm wondering if the committee's going to flip-flop those two teams. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if they do a little flip-flop there.
Yeah, I think that there's quality opponent eye test that Texas A&M had the better win this weekend than Indiana did. I mean, they go on the road to Mizzou. I know Mizzou was starting Matt Zollers with Bro Pribula being out with that ankle injury, but A&M just kind of took it to him. Like you could tell pretty early on, like there was that play where it was the biggest disaster you could have happen to you if you're Zollers, where he's getting sacked, and he gets sacked so hard that the ball just goes flying up in the air, gets intercepted by a defensive lineman, run all the way back to the 1 yard line. And you're like, oh boy, this is probably going to be one of those nights for Mizzou, huh? And A&M just kind of took it to him for the duration of that game, whereas Indiana, like you said, needed that last minute heroics from Mendoza in order to get it done. So it would not stun me if A&M checks in as the number 2 team this week in this particular iteration of the rankings. I still have the utmost respect for this Indiana team. Like, I think that you're allowed to have a game like that, over the course of a 12-game season, for crying out loud, in Happy Valley. You know that they're going to kind of throw everything at you. We'll get to that game a little bit more, but ultimately, I would not be surprised if there is a small shakeup where they flip-flop 2 and 3 with A&M checking in right behind Ohio State.
Right, and Indiana also blew a 10-point lead in the second half in that game too. So it's very much a what have you done for me lately type of thing here, but that is the world we live in when it comes to these rankings and in college football here in 2025. The other one that I think we will see, I bet Texas Tech jumps up past Oregon. I think that will happen. Just the way Texas Tech, like they full-on dominated BYU. That game could have been a lot worse than it was. I mean, credit to BYU for getting Tech to settle for field goals throughout that game. And we talked about this a week ago where it felt like BYU was about to fight outside of their weight class. Not only did it look like that, but it also looked like they had like one arm tied behind their back in that fight throughout the entire game here. So I think for Texas Tech to do that to the committee's, number 7 team, 8 team, whatever it was, I think it was 8, I think they jump Oregon because Oregon just once again looks really sloppy, yes, in sloppy weather. But I just think Texas Tech, with the way they're rolling, and now once again, they still have yet to play a game within 20 points when they're fully healthy and Baron Morton is playing. So I think Tech jumps up here and they make a leap to like number 7. I don't think they get past Ole Miss, but I think we'll see Texas Tech at number 7 on Tuesday night.
I think that's a good call. I wonder if the committee just pokes Lane Kiffin a little bit, having played the Citadel and with Oregon and Texas Tech both having quality wins. I don't think that they end up moving Ole Miss down or even 2 spots, but I do think that Texas Tech probably it fits in right after that SEC cluster of Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. And
then on the other side of that too, how far does BYU drop? That's another question here for Tuesday night. The AP dropped them 4 spots to number 12. I think that feels about right here with what the playoff committee is going to do as well. Like, I think they'll fall below a couple of 2-loss teams here like Notre Dame, Texas, and Oklahoma just because of how they lost. Where the Texas loss, the Oklahoma losses, and even the Notre Dame 2 losses here were much more palatable than I think the way BYU lost to Texas Tech over the weekend.
Yeah, BYU didn't look all that competitive in that one. It is still their first loss of the season. It is, in a spot against one of the best teams in the country as we've established. So I think they'll still be in the field as it stands, but you can't move Utah or you can't move BYU down past Utah with the head-to-head victory and similar records there, with BYU having the better record between those two. So I think that it's a slip for BYU, but you can still feel good if you're a BYU fan that, yes, this week happened, but you still have 3 more games to punch your ticket to the Big 12 championship and right your wrongs in Dallas. So I think that's about where they end up. 12 sounds right to me.
Yeah, and BYU too, they control their own destiny right now to get to Dallas, because I think they play TCU at home, at Cincinnati, which is going to be fascinating. That could be a play-in game, basically, to the Big 12 championship. And then they finish up with UCF at home as well. So everything is still very much on the table for BYU. Just it felt like they were fighting up a weight class over the weekend. I think we saw that separation there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that game, where I think Texas Tech has once again, if they hadn't already, solidified themselves as the class of the Big 12 there. So now we got to do this, because I've literally been this next segment that we're going to do, we're going to talk about the ACC. I have been wondering how to bring this up, how to talk about this since Saturday night, and all I can really say, John, is this is why we can't have nice things. The ACC, what is going on in this conference? Virginia, number 14, loses to Wake Forest 16-9 at home. 0 touchdowns for Virginia in a home game against Wake Forest. Number 15, Louisville, not to be outdone. They lose to Cal 29-26 in overtime at home. Duke goes up to Storrs and they lose to UConn 37-34. Shout out to you for calling that, by the way. Miami with another slow start. Yes, they figure it out and end up cruising past Syracuse. 38-10 the final there. SMU crushed Boston College, who is barely a Power 4 team at this point. And Pitt and Georgia Tech both on the bye there, sitting pretty with their feet up. I think you can make the argument, John, that Georgia Tech had the best weekend in the country, and they didn't even play football.
That's a strong argument right there. I mean, just complete a total train wreck for the rest of these ACC contenders. I mean, Virginia, tough luck with them. I think Chandler Morris got dinged up during that game. Duke, oddly enough, if you're going to be the team that loses this weekend, or one of the teams that lose this weekend, at least it wasn't a conference game. At least there's that. Louisville, I think they were 18.5-point favorites or something, though, to lose that one outright. That's really tough. That's a bit of a referendum on them. It's kind of making me second guess a lot of the things that I've thought about Louisville over the course of this season. SMU, I'm still not totally sure if I believe it or not, or whether it's just a function of them playing Boston College, but they got the big win over Miami last week, so they're still alive. They're third in the ACC championship odds right now at plus 550. And then I'm going to keep beating this drum until further notice, but Pitt at plus 650, very, very interesting ticket if you wanted to take a dabble on that to win the ACC right now. But long story short, when it comes to Tech, disappointing game going into the bye and everything like that, but they couldn't have asked for better results this weekend than what they got.
Yeah, and everything's right there in front of Georgia Tech still. They had that setback a week ago. I was I spit out my coffee and I wasn't even drinking any when I saw ESPN flash the graphic on Sunday that Duke has the second best percentage chances to win the ACC. And it's wait, Duke's 5-4, aren't they? And then you go and look at their schedule. They only have one loss in conference, so Duke can still play. Duke has everything to play. Everything to play for right in front of them as well. I mean, it's fascinating with this conference right now, John. You just mentioned the odds there. Georgia Tech's the favorite pretty overwhelmingly right now at plus 160. Duke right behind them. SMU, Pitt falling in line there. Virginia after them, but they might have some injury concerns at quarterback. And then you got Miami and Louisville just sitting there at 15-1. Right now, trying to project this thing out, who are you putting your money on?
For me, it's still Georgia Tech. I still think that they have the most impactful quarterback in the conference with Haynes King. The way that he's able to run for 100 yards, throw for a couple hundred yards, punch in 3 touchdowns and call it a day. I am worried about this Tech defense, as far as being a legit, force in the college football playoff, assuming that they get there. But I think Tech is your safest bet. And then, again, Pitt is just sort of like the live wire to me with the way that they've gotten things rolling under Mason Henschel. But Darian Mensah is really good also for Duke. So, I mean, like if they get there, I know that the results over the course of the season haven't been amazing for them with the 4 losses, everything like that, and getting smoked by Illinois way back when, everything like that. But I still think if they get to the ACC championship game, Mensah is like the kind of difference maker and Cooper Barkate, the wide receiver, Anderson Castle, Nate Shepard, like they've got some dudes on that offense, and Manny Diaz can coach a good defense. So I believe in Duke if they get there, but I think right now that smart money would understandably be on Tech at plus 150, and then again my wild card is going to stay Pitt until proven otherwise.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech right now, they only have 2 conference games remaining. They go and play Boston College on the road this weekend. They'll be up here in Boston. They're like 20-point favorites almost at this point. They should roll BC. And then they play NC State after that, so that's going to be probably a wild game. And then obviously they finish with Georgia, but that's a non-con here. So Georgia Tech should be in Charlotte for that game, I think, on one hand. So that's not a bad idea just to grab that ticket, just because they're probably going to be favored in that game, and you won't be able to get that kind of price that you can get on them now. And then when it comes to Duke, like looking at their remaining schedule, they get Virginia at home, which that line immediately was a little weird to me because Duke's favored by almost a touchdown here this weekend. And then at North Carolina, home against Wake Forest, who, as we've seen, can really play spoiler here. But those are 3 games that Duke should be favored in each one of them. And then we could possibly get a rematch between Tech and Duke. And at that point, John, I think it's very clear that the ACC is only getting 1 team in this thing this year.
Yeah, if that ends up being the matchup, yeah, and then you have the possibility of, the fact that it's hard to beat a team twice in a given season. So if Duke kind of steals the bid and wins the ACC, what do they do with an 11-win Georgia Tech team? Like, I think that they're going to be a little bit at the mercy of, how these other teams finish out. I was talking last week about how Iowa is a team to keep an eye on. They had a chance to really kind of make a run and put themselves on the playoff radar. Kind of took themselves out of it with that loss to Oregon this past weekend to give them 3 losses. But there could very well be just this big pile of 2-loss teams with arguably better resumes than Georgia Tech at 11-1. So that creates a very interesting dynamic and decision for that committee.
And I'm sorry, I think I said Georgia Tech plays NC State. They play Pitt. How could I forget? Like, that game's coming up in 2 weeks. It's going to be a monster game. Pitt obviously has to get through Notre Dame first here. But the Panthers, like Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami, is a fun end-of-year schedule here for Pittsburgh that could really shape things up for Pitt to make a run into this playoff too. But a lot of football to be played here still. The ACC is very much worth watching just from that like train wreck standpoint where it's just a massive pile up. It feels like every weekend here. So something to keep an eye on there, and we will obviously be talking a lot more about that as we go forward here. But I do want to get into some of these game breakdowns and recaps, and let's just go back to that game that happened in Lubbock, Texas over the weekend. It was a top 10 showdown between BYU and Texas Tech, and honestly, I just felt like Texas Tech took BYU and shoved them in a locker in this game. Like, it felt like this game could have been a lot uglier than the 29-7 final score. The Cougars were held off the scoreboard until the 4th quarter. Credit to BYU's defense for holding Texas Tech to field goals on a lot of those drives there. But like, this was definitely a mismatch of like epic proportion, different weight classes. This Texas Tech team is legit, and I think they should scare a lot of teams across the country, including a lot of SEC teams, with the way they can get after the quarterback. But the key for Texas Tech going forward, John, is the health of Baron Morton. When he's healthy, they're completely different. They have not played a game within 20 points when he is on the field, so they got to keep him upright. Their backup, Hammond, got hurt. He's done for the year. So as long as Baron Morton's healthy, Texas Tech is a legit contender in this thing.
Well, the Tech defense is amazing. It's so disruptive. It's so chaotic. I mean, like the way that they were able to hold Bear Bachmeier to 4.5 or 4.9 yards per attempt and hold BYU with LJ Martin back to just 2.5 yards per carry. win that turnover battle, forcing 3 of them. A strong 100% post-game win expectancy from this Red Raiders team. I will say, and I think your point is well taken when it comes to Baron Morton, and like the results definitely speak for themselves. If the defense is, maybe giving up some points in the college football playoff to one of these, kind of elite offenses that they'd be facing, do you trust Morton to kind of raise his game? Because he kind of strikes me as a little bit of like a caretaker, like someone who just doesn't get in the way of Texas Tech winning, more so than being the driving force why Tech is where they are right now.
Yes, well, I think the way I would answer that is that I'd be more shocked that Texas Tech would be giving up a bunch of points.
Yeah.
Because just the way they've played defense so far, they have the number 1 run defense in the country. They just took a top 15 rushing attack and held them under 3 yards per carry, as you were mentioning. Like, they get after the quarterback. We've seen them when as long as they're fully healthy, this defense is just so scary that I don't think Morton's going to ever really be asked to do that much. And I think the offense is okay. Yeah, they stall out at some points like they did over the weekend, but I don't know. I can see Texas Tech making a deep run in this thing, and it would not surprise me if they make the national semifinal or something like that.
I mean, it's right there. And again, they have a good enough defense to make that happen. I want to play some hypotheticals and If they're going up against like an Ole Miss, a team that can score at will but maybe doesn't have the best defense on their side, like that would set up a really interesting matchup to me.
Sure.
Because I think that Ole Miss can score on pretty much anybody. So seeing them against this Texas Tech defense and Texas Tech having to answer the bell offensively, I think that's where I have questions about this team. But again, ultimately, probably not going to be answered until we get in the college football playoff. Texas Tech looking awesome right now as it projects for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would be legit shocked if they are not in the college football playoff. I'm just looking at the odds right now. Minus 290 to win the Big 12. Next closest is BYU at plus 650, and then Cincinnati right behind them at 800. So I would be legit shocked if Texas Tech is not in the college football playoff, and they look awesome right now, and definitely stock is rising on them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that that was like their big hurdle to clear on Saturday, beating BYU. It was at home, crazy environment there. It looked awesome out there in Lubbock. It was crazy, and I was glad to see them give the home fans a good showing in that one. Have you heard anything from the BYU fans in our TikTok comments? Oddly quiet.
No, I haven't.
Did their internet go out?
It must have. It must have been unplugged there in Provo. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. Haven't heard from them. But anyways, speaking of giving your home fans, something to be proud of, I guess you could say that about Penn State this week. Like, you showed up and you gave Indiana everything they could handle. Final score, Indiana 27, Penn State 24. John, you kind of hinted at this at the start of the show. Championship teams, right? You're going to get tested at some point during the season. Indiana passes this test because of a ballsy final drive by Fernando Mendoza, finding Omar Cooper Jr. with probably the catch of the year for that touchdown. Has anyone done a wellness check on Gus Johnson, by the way? Like, my man couldn't even form words on that final call. It was incredible. But Indiana, they win because of their quarterback leading them down the field.
If we clip this, I don't know if it's a copyright infringement to pull the audio from Gus Johnson's call on the Omar Cooper touchdown, but the dude sounded like he was floating away or like being disintegrated or something. Like, you didn't know what was going on in the booth there. It was Omar Cooper touchdown. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, I was cracking up laughing, but also just in sheer amazement of that drive from Mendoza and that catch from Cooper. Cooper really, kind of had to put his cape on because Elijah Surratt was not available for that game. So, that's a huge loss for that Indiana team, and they weren't even favored by that much. We talked about it a decent bit on the show last week. I was 14.5 with like Penn State's awful. What's going on there? But Penn State emptied the clip. They did everything that they could, but did have the letdown defensively there. That ultimately cost them. I thought it was a little bit weird that Indiana squibbed right after that touchdown, but alas. And then as far as the post-game metrics are concerned, a 52% post-game win expectancy from Indiana. So really, truly a coin flip game. Nick Singleton actually looked like who we thought Nick Singleton was supposed
Found
to be.
him.
I thought that he was running all over them in the second half there. But that is the narrowest margin of a post-game win for Indiana by a decent bit. That was their first game under a 97% post-game win expectancy. So that dovetails with the idea that Indiana had completely dominated to this point of the season, and they did get into a sticky situation there on Saturday, but did manage to fight their way out of it.
So I love the new slogan, right? Heisman Mendoza. Like, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good one. That's got a nice ring to it. What do you think right now? Should he be the Heisman favorite? I think Julian Sayan technically is, but I don't know. I know Sayan had a great game, but like still, like I don't know. I think what Mendoza is doing and has done is more impressive than Sayan so far this season.
Like, it's a complicated one because I don't want to like disrespect Julian Sayan and in this Ohio State team in the sense that it's like they're playing who's on their schedule, right? And like Ohio State, is it just they're not going to have to go full go for all 60 minutes against teams like Purdue or Illinois or anything like that. Like, so there hasn't really been the opportunity so much for Sayan to have like that quote unquote Heisman moment the way that Mendoza had, where, like they throw the pick six against Oregon, bounce right back like nothing happened, and end up winning that game by double digits. This weekend, game on the line, undefeated season on the line, delivers it that touchdown to Omar Cooper, like incredible stuff. So Mendoza, just I do think that there's like a little bit of soft science to the Heisman generally, and the stats actually favor Mendoza a little bit more. He's turned the ball over more than Sayan has, but 31 total touchdowns I think it is for Mendoza, so should get over that 40 threshold, which I think is important for a quarterback to win the Heisman. Again, Sayan, I understand why he's the favorite. He's the quarterback of the best team in college football, but I think that Mendoza has more to do with why Indiana is where they are whereas Sayan, I think, like, I'm not saying that you could plug anyone in there and they would do what Sayan's doing, but I think that there's a little bit more of like a Herculean effort for what Mendoza's doing with this Hoosiers team right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think that is the right way to put it too, where I think he just like, I don't know, which one would be easier to replace, right? Which one could the backup come in and function better? I think the backup in Ohio State, Kleinholtz, I believe his name is, could come in and run that offense pretty close to what Sayan's got going on compared to, I'm not even sure who the backup is in Indiana. I don't know. I don't.
The other Mendoza.
Oh, is it another Mendoza?
Yeah.
Really? Are they brothers?
Alfred. Yeah.
Alfred. Oh, okay. There you go. Look at that. You learn something new every day. I don't know if Alfred Mendoza could come in and do what his brother is doing at Indiana, if that makes sense.
I think it does. So, yeah, I mean, the efficiency's nuts. Like
right.
like
I mean, credit to him. He's been great. Like, he has been great. He's actually been better than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Like this year. But Fernando Mendoza has been incredible. I think that's like the difference there. Now, Sayan could go out and win in the Big House and dominate Michigan. If he does that, then okay, then I think we're having a real conversation here. But right now, I think Mendoza is where the money should be.
And then I'll dangle this one out there. Could I perhaps interest you in a Marcel Reed 8-1 ticket?
I don't hate that either. Like, he's been awesome. He was great in Como over the weekend. 220 yards, a couple touchdowns, making some plays with his legs as well. Mike Elko said that, like, he's unlocked the entire offense over the weekend here. Don't hate that because, like, that game and that's also, like, they got that game coming up in Austin at the end of the season where they should be 11-0 going into that one. Where that's going to be insane, too, against that defense. So, yeah, I mean, a lot still to be decided, and having an 8-1 ticket there on Marcel Reed isn't a bad idea either.
Yeah, I think, like, basically I'm just trying to look for a door number 3 in the sense that once you get past Reed in the Heisman odds, you're talking about throwing darts out there, like 25-1 type of guys. So it does feel like the Heisman race is starting to solidify with it being Sayan, Mendoza, and Reed. Still kind of a distant-ish third, but I think it's still attainable if A&M is able to run the table and Reed has that proverbial Heisman moment against the Longhorns.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I guess probably can't sleep on Ty Simpson yet either, and we'll get to Alabama just because Without Ty Simpson, I'm not sure how good Alabama is. And we will talk about them and their running attack and coming up in a little bit. I do want to get to this Oregon-Iowa game. That was just a slop fest over the weekend. Oregon 18, Iowa 16. It's Oregon. Dante Moore with an absolute laser on that final drive. That was incredible. That pass, that 24-yard pass to Benson, like he threaded that needle and then some in those conditions. I was impressed with Oregon to go in there and get that win, pull off the win the way that they did. They were able to do just enough offensively against that Iowa defense. Their run game was excellent. They averaged over 7 yards per carry compared to just 3. I think 3.3 to be exact for Iowa there. They picked up a safety. Like, you put it in our notes, so I'll let you take it away here, but that was just a perfect Iowa game.
Yeah, like Oregon went in there, and us included, we're a little bit skeptical about how the Ducks would fly into Iowa City. You know, it was going to be crazy weather environment. It was going to be one where, you know, it looks like it's nighttime there by the time that the second quarter kicks off. Hostile environment, Kinnick, you know, everyone's just right on top of you. Huge pressure situation, and Oregon kind of won that in Iowa fashion. They ran the hell out of the ball, like you were saying. They won the turnover battle. They even got a safety, which is, you know, you're more apt to see that working in Iowa's favor, but you know, Oregon got it and ended up being the difference with them winning that game by 2 in a total slobber knocker. So, you know, for Oregon to do that, and I think it's also important to note, sort of like what I was saying about Indiana missing Surratt as a late scratch. DeCorian Moore was unable to go, and he's been, you know, one of the best freshman receivers in all of college football thus far this season. He wasn't able to play. We'll have to kind of see what his status is here going forward, because I think if you remove him from that group of pass catchers, Oregon's offense becomes you know, a little bit more suspect right now. But ultimately, that was a huge test for Oregon to prove that they can win in that type of environment. And they passed it, not necessarily with flying colors, but almost like by virtue of winning ugly, you come away almost more impressed with this Ducks team. So kudos to them, hats off to them. Really tough environment, got it done. So can't take anything away from the Ducks. And unfortunately for Iowa, that kind of ends their potential as a dark horse. I was kind of hoping that time would make me look smarter for that one when I made that video last week. Alas, still have Pitt though as my other team. But moving on.
There we go. I think we were both well over that 6.5 for Iowa going into the season. So we just need one more win, I believe, to cash that ticket there, and we should get that down the stretch. For Oregon, really interesting schedule to finish things out here in November, John. Short week this week. They play Friday night against Minnesota. That game is in Eugene, but interesting spread there. I'm kind of looking at that one. 24. They're a 24-point favorite against the Gophers. PJ Flex team, I think, coming off a bye, too, where Oregon's got all that travel, and then they have to go to USC, where they're going to need to be healthy on offense for that one. Or no, they actually play USC at home, but still same time zone, so Lincoln Riley should be able to figure that out. Even if he can't put different jersey numbers on backup quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff, which that was just a wild way to start the weekend. And then Oregon ends the season at Washington. And, Washington. Washington, what did you do over the weekend? I think we'll talk a little bit about Wisconsin coming up in a few minutes there. So as we keep moving along, guys, let's just kind of fire through some of these more cruise control-like wins here. And let's start off with the number one team in the country. Ohio State takes down Purdue 34-10. No Carnell Tate, no problem. Jeremiah Smith, remember him? Yeah, still the best receiver in college football. 10 catches, 137 yards, and a touchdown. Ryan Day calling this win business-like, and I think that's a pretty good way to put that.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add there other than was nice to see Jeremiah Smith kind of have a Jeremiah Smith game. But, you know, Purdue, there wasn't good. I mean, even with Sayan throwing a pick in the end zone, like there just wasn't much of a way for Purdue to gain yards on that Ohio State defense. It's such just like a vice grip of a unit. So, yeah, I mean, Ohio State is allowed to say that at this point. This is just business trip. You know, we've seen West Lafayette be a house of horrors for Ohio State, or really just
I think Purdue covered. I think Purdue
yeah.
did cover, so
that's a good point. But ultimately, you know, the Buckeyes, yeah, they just need to get to that Michigan game. You know, I think after they cleared the Penn State hurdle, and Penn State kind of made itself a very not difficult hurdle to clear, it always felt like Ohio State, you know, the rest of their season just perception-wise at least, hinges on that Michigan game. But they're obviously in great shape to end up being the number 1 seed.
Absolutely. Texas A&M takes down Missouri 38-17. A&M's defense, I thought they made the true freshman quarterback Zollers in his first career start look like a true freshman in his first career start. Marcel Reed, as we were just talking about, with another big day. A&M runs for over 6 yards per carry here. Ahmad Hardy finally has a big game in an SEC game and a conference game there, but was not enough as Mizzou just could not throw the ball this entire game here. And if you can't do that on Texas A&M, you're going to have a tough time beating them, tough time stopping them. A&M, I think they've scored 35 or at least 30 points in every single game this season, maybe except for one. I was looking at the schedule last night. This offense is just humming. And they outgained Missouri in this one 464-284. I don't want to call this one business-like too, but just A&M is literally just taking care of business and what they have to do here as they get closer and closer to that Texas showdown at the end of the season.
Yeah, like you said, a tough introduction for Zollers. 7 for 22 for 77 yards. That's brutal. The A&M was just in his lap all evening. And 74 of those yards went to my guy Donovan Olubade, who really flashed against Alabama. So keep an eye on him for next year and moving forward when you're figuring out who your favorite receivers are to watch, because he looks like he's the real deal. But yeah, you worry about the season getting away from Mizzou at this point. Now that Pribula's out and you lose a couple games in a row, this is Drinkwitz is kind of getting some heat. It seems like from local media about his inability to beat ranked SEC opponents. I still think he's got Mizzou as a program in a good spot, but I think playing against this A&M team without Bo, that was always going to be a big challenge for them. But, again, that's not taking away any credit for A&M. They just continue to string together impressive performance after impressive performance.
Yeah, I feel like Drink's got Mizzou at pretty much at their ceiling. What more do you want and expect from this program? Obviously you can want more, but what more do you expect from Missouri, especially when you're down to a true freshman quarterback making his first career start against one of the top 3 teams in the country in November? Yeah,
so I think that's almost a tad greedy, or remember yourself, Mizzou. But I thought coming into this year, the way that they were rolling early on, maybe we could have a year that looked like their season 2 years ago with Brady Cook and Cody Schrader and Luther Burden, all those guys. It was rolling there for a bit. Seems like it's gotten off the tracks a bit, but I still think that this Mizzou program largely in good shape. At A&M, in even better shape right now, maybe even the second best shape in the country.
Definitely. I would agree with that. Ole Miss shuts out the Citadel 49-0. John, all I can say about this game is, hey, Austin Simmons completed a pass for the first time in 2 months. So there's that.
I think that means Citadel covered, though.
They did. Yeah, it was 54.5.
Lane, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, Washington State covered against them, too. And they're not covering these big spreads. What's going on?
I can't wait. I cannot wait for the Egg Bowl. But yeah, Ole Miss, they're awesome. They just went ahead and did their thing on Saturday. But I think that first quarter in particular, they were just totally unstoppable. So not a whole lot to glean from that game if you're Ole Miss. So you're just kind of on to week 12 here.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you got your coach running out to take a picture with the couple that got engaged over on the field during the game, I think that one was pretty much in the bag from the beginning there. But nice for Ole Miss to get a little tune-up game there before they play Florida this weekend, which should be an interesting one there with potentially Lane coaching against maybe his future employer. I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, that one is coming up in week 12. Georgia 41, Mississippi State 21. They scored on 6 of their first 7 drives. That must have felt good, John, as Georgia runs for over 300 yards in this one too.
Yeah, I think the big offensive flashes from this one that are going to be very important moving forward is Nate Frazier having a good game. He had kind of sort of been surpassed, it felt like, by Chauncey Bowens as the go-to guy in that backfield, but 12 carries for 181, including that 60-yard touchdown run for Frazier, so that was big time. And then this is slightly more granular, but Colby Young gets hurt, I think, against Ole Miss. He's going to be out for the rest of the season, so Noah Thomas, the transfer from A&M, kind of stepping in as the X receiver for Georgia, had that really sick 64-yard touchdown catch on his own where he just kind of ran away from that Miss State defense. The Georgia defense, it's encouraging to hold a team like Miss State to under 30 points, or holding them to just 21 points. That's all well and good, but I will say that Miss State's offensive line is probably the worst one that they've faced in conference play. You'd have to go back to the Austin Peay game to, I think, find a worse offensive line. So maybe it's good for the confidence for this Georgia team to be able to get some pressure on the quarterback. But I don't think that means that the defense is fixed so much as it's just a function of Miss State's offensive line being pretty overmatched in that one. So I think that this Texas game will be a much bigger test for Georgia's defensive front and their ability to heat up Arch.
Yeah, that is definitely the game of the week in Week 12. We will break that one down in full on Thursday when we do our preview show. Cannot wait to dive inside John's mind for that one because I'm sure he's got some thoughts cooking for Saturday night there down in Athens. Notre Dame 49, Navy 10, excuse me. Blake Horvath was ruled out right before this game started, John. I immediately hammered Notre Dame minus 28.5. Look, Notre Dame, they held Navy over 100 yards below their season average rushing. Jeremiah Smith with another big game. You got to make sure you get that guy fully on the ground because as we saw, he can just kind of somersault over you and run for a touchdown. But sloppy weather, Notre Dame with another big win here as they've won 7 in a row. I think this just sets this is the statement game coming up here against Pitt this weekend for the Irish to pretty much solidify their case to be a playoff team. Notre Dame favored, I think, by 10.5 coming up here. They got to win this one big and make a statement that yes, we are one of the 10 best teams in the country here coming up.
Right. So, like we established after week 2, it's okay, Notre Dame, or I guess week 3, okay, Notre Dame, it's got to be style points the rest of the way. You get 10-2 is going to help, but 10-2 with some oomph to it, that's going to be your way in because there's going to be other 10-2 teams that are fighting for an at-large bid in this playoffs this year. So Notre Dame's got to get it done. I think that was an encouraging one. It stands as a quality win. Navy was 7-1 going into that game. I know that again, no Horvath. That changes things drastically for the midshipmen, but that to me was business-like from Notre Dame, who I think is just now pasted Navy at least a couple years in a row now.
Yeah, I mean, after what they did to him last year, it was kind of got that same feeling again going into this one, and that's what ended up happening. But yeah, Notre Dame just got to keep these double-digit wins coming, and they've done that in 7 straight games. Got to make it 8 in a row coming up. Saturday against Pittsburgh, we'll break that game down in full on our Week 12 preview show as well. All right, Monday Cope, Monday Smoke. John, if you don't mind, can I start off this segment this week?
Please.
Because I don't think anybody, Wisconsin fans, where you at? Beat that chest. Let it out, man. Anytime you can knock off a ranked opponent with your punter leading your team in passing, you got to do it. And that's what happened. Sean West, the team's freshman punter, leads Wisconsin in passing. Just truly sick stuff from the Badgers as they beat Washington 13-10. Washington, what happened? In that one, that was something else. I don't know if we'll ever see a game like this ever again where your punter leads the team in passing and you knock off a ranked opponent.
That's so Wisconsin. What a week for them. You talk about having your mind in a pretzel, just thinking through the ACC. How are Wisconsin people feeling right now? Because it almost felt like the worst news imaginable came down on Thursday or Wednesday last week, where it's Fickle will be back next year. Suck it. You're going to – this is what we're giving you and you're going to like it. But we're also going to throw more money at the problem, so maybe that fixes it. And then you pull off the upset of upsets. I don't think that a single Wisconsin fan, if given truth serum or enough spotted cows, would have told you that they expected the Badgers to get that win on Saturday night. But I knew some people that were in the house. I'm like, why would you go to a Wisconsin football game? But they were able to get it done. It was kind of snowy up there in Madison, kind of beautiful. And Washington, fish, man. If you're trying to jump, you can't lose that one.
Wow.
It kind of takes you off the coaching hot board type of stuff. But yes, if you're Wisconsin, weird week, but you got to take them where you can get them. Good for y'all. I think Cal is another one. Just again winning outright against Louisville as 18-point dogs. That's huge. JKS had the big game, 323 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Cal, bowl eligible. Bowl eligible. How about that for this Bears team? And then Indiana, are they like the SEC version of Georgia in that they're just hard to kill? Like they took the best punch possible from Penn State and were able to get it done. So IU definitely just like kind of battle tested right now among the Big Ten pecking order. All right, if I'm coping, I'm going to cope a little bit here. If I'm LSU, well, at least there's only 3 more weeks of this. We're almost done. Just got to...
Nussmeier finally getting benched, by the way.
Yep. I mean, my goodness. It's, Bama's defense has put the clamps on them. LSU's offense kind of always does a good job of putting the clamps on itself. This will go down when we do kind of like a retrospective on this season as one of the more confusing outcomes in recent memory for a team where this offense is this bad with what you look at on paper. Crazy. BYU... I think, you take it on the chin on Saturday in Lubbock, but you can at least tell yourself, maybe see you again in December. You can still get yourself into the Big 12 championship game. That win that they have in their pocket over Utah looms so large right now because obviously after the committee rankings last week, the committee respects Utah a lot, having them at 13 in their initial set of rankings. So they're right there, but BYU does have the head-to-head on them, so potentially catch Texas Tech once again, learn from your mistakes. And then Auburn, well, the offense is fixed.
Oh, my God.
But all of a sudden that you have the worst defensive performance that you have all season. But, getting away from Jackson Arnold tends to be a good thing. If we learn anything from Oklahoma last year and obviously Auburn on Saturday night, Ashton Daniels had himself a good game against this Vanderbilt team. They almost had him, but ultimately did not come through. But, at least the offense, it made Auburn a lot more watchable. Than I think they have been for the bulk of this season. So maybe they end up being a little bit fun here down the stretch. And, I said it back in August. I thought that Auburn had the goods to potentially pull off the upset against Georgia or Alabama. I don't know. That game, the Iron Bowl, could be a little bit crazy if the offense is actually, a little bit fixed and the defense can get itself back together.
Yeah, and that game's at Jordan Hare this year, right? And we know when that game is in that building, it tends to get a little wild. And also, Cam Coleman, not of this world. Oh, my God, that dude is insane. And it was nice to see a quarterback actually be able to get him the ball consistently because that kid can make plays. And he made a couple of just wild catches down the stretch there as Auburn was trying to pull off that upset against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so Auburn is going to have to think about their resources smartly, obviously, because they got a new coach to hire. They're going to need to bag up to keep Coleman because there's going to be a lot of teams sniffing around trying to get him because he's the real deal. Like on a physical talent level, like probably just behind Jeremiah Smith for biggest beast at receiver in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. You better hope that he has formed a really good friendship with Deuce Knight and that he wants to play with him next year, if you're an Auburn fan. We didn't talk about Alabama. I do want to hit on this quick. Still can't run the ball. Absolutely. Yes, they win. They beat LSU 20-9. Ty Simpson with another pretty good game. You kind of asked me earlier, right, about Baron Morton and, what happens when he has to will this team to a win offensively? Let's say the defense gives up some points. I think I kind of have a similar question for you with Alabama, right? What happens when they go up against the secondary that limits Ty Simpson? Are they going to be able to run the ball and put points on the board? Because, yes, this defense is extremely opportunistic, and they are very good at turning you over. But, if Alabama has to be able to move the ball, and Simpson just can't throw one game, what's going to happen there? This team, they can't run.
No. My guy Daniel Hill, the leading rusher on Saturday night, 21 yards.
Yeah.
So that's not good. It's not good. So there is a bit of I don't think that an Alabama fan would say that they're necessarily concerned about this team right now, but yeah, that inability to run the ball, it could end up being an issue. I think Ohio State sneakily has an issue that's
they
similar, maybe not as extreme as Bama's, but yeah, I don't know why they can't generate push or really get either Jam Miller or anybody else going in the ground game. Chris Felica tweeted last night, just kind of emptying the notebook out from the weekend. He says, seemingly everything has gone their way. This is in regards to Alabama since the opening week loss in Tallahassee, and eventually every key play will stop going their way, right? I just laughed at that one. It's, you know who you're talking about. Of course, Bama is always going to end up getting the good breaks. So, there is still that going for them.
Yeah, and they have Oklahoma this weekend. The game's in
Narrow
Tuscaloosa.
spread.
This is going to be a very interesting one here because this could be that pass defense and the pass rush that limits Simpson. Like, Oklahoma's coming in off a bye, right? You give Brent Venables 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Going to be a fantastic chess match between Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and Brent Venables in that defense here between these two teams.
Just a little sneak peek. SP Plus has Alabama winning that game by 1.3 points.
I saw that. That is very interesting. It's one of those lines that immediately jumped out at me for this weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that on Thursday.
Yes. So, if nothing else, I still have trouble with Oklahoma, but defense is good, and this is their chance to really make it count. I think I could say that much with them going into Tuscaloosa with a little bit of extra rest. I think that initial run of the models showing Oklahoma as showing this game as almost a pick 'em. Very interesting.
All right. So talking about betting here, John, good week, 9-5 between the two of us, up a little over 3 units. Anything you want to throw out here? As we do have action now. We do have those midweek games here if you want to get anything on the card before we talk on Thursday.
Yes. So excited to have another positive week there, 9-5. I know that I think UNLV cruised, and I felt great about that Miss State Georgia over. Georgia did a lot of the heavy lifting there as well, but Miss State got us over the top there, so that was good, although Miss State did not even come remotely close to covering that one, but I'm also okay with that. From action, give you guys a little Tuesday taste. Why not? Give me Western Michigan at home as a 1.5 point underdog against the Ohio Bobcats. So give me the Broncos, row the boat.
Are you taking the 1.5 or are you going money line?
I'll just take the 1.5. These action games get a little bit crazy for me.
Sure. I'm looking to. All right, I'm going to do this. Let's go Central Michigan minus 2.5 against Buffalo. The Chippewas are undefeated at home this year. I think that stays that way. They'll win this game by a field goal here. I know Buffalo's had a pretty nice season, but let's go Central Michigan minus 2.5. That game is the 12th, which is Wednesday night. So there we go. Gave you something for Tuesday and Wednesday here.
Look at that. Fire up, Chips.
Leading into Thursday's show. All right, I think that's going to do it for us here for this Week 11 recap. John, I'm guessing you're probably going to do a quick little committee video at some point this week on our TikTok.
Can do.
CFB
Will
Tailgate.
do.
All right, very good. At CFB Tailgate is where you can find us on there. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching. At College Football Tailgate on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, CFB Tailgate 25 on Twitter. It's the best time of the year. Like this, everything's coming down to the wire here. So many races. It's awesome, and we will be here throughout the remainder of the season and into the playoff to talk to you guys about it every week with 2 shows a week. We'll be back on Thursday. For John, I'm Dan. Talk to you then.